All right, let's talk about one of Samsung's new A series phones. This one in particular, I think will be their best seller. This is the A52 5G, and I think it just boils down to the best value. This has a strangely attractive price point for the feature set that you get with it. And yeah, let's dig in. So this lineup, like the A series phones, normally they cut corners just to make it fit into the whole category of Samsung Galaxy smartphones properly. But this year, it's weirdly well equipped and well featured. Okay, so this thing starts at $400 or $500 US. It's got 120 hertz display, IP certified water resistance, it's got a headphone jack, dual speakers, micro SD card slot, a very solid camera system, and 4 years of security updates promised from Samsung. And because it's a Samsung Galaxy A series phone, this is going to see some really aggressive carrier discounts in terms of its pricing. So there's a lot going on that's great on this phone. So the design of it is pretty simple, right? This is a black colored phone. It obviously comes in various colors, but they all look pretty plain. And this is a plastic phone, plastic backed, plastic frame, but they own the plastic material, right? They don't try to pretend like it's plastic, or they don't try to pretend like it's metal. It's just plain plastic, but it feels durable. I will say though, if you're looking for imperfections in the build, some of the seams are a little rough where some of the plastic components meet up, but otherwise, great looking phone, great built phone, and I'm assuming solid durability. It just feels tanky all around. Now the display up front, I like a lot. So this is a flat edge display, unlike a lot of the premium Samsung phones that have curved edges. It's 6.5 inches, 1080p, Super AMOLED display, and 120 hertz. So very fast and fluid if you're scrolling through stuff. It's also 800 nits. And I think for a lot of people looking at that number, at that brightness measurement, it doesn't seem particularly bright, right? Because there are displays out there that are like 1200, even 1500 nits and beyond, but it doesn't scale linearly. It's a logarithmic thing, right? So when you go from, let's say, 500 nits to 1000 nits, it's not actually double the perceived brightness. It's double the nit count, but you have to go probably like 4x to be able to get double the brightness. All sweaty stuff, but the point I'm trying to make is that an 800 nit screen, even though it doesn't seem super bright on paper, is very bright. Like 800 nits is more than enough for most people. This isn't even at full brightness. This is like, I don't know, 3/4. That's full brightness. It's a bright screen. The bezels are reasonably thin. The top one's a little bit thicker, and the bottom bezel even more so, but overall I think the bezels look clean. There is that silver ring on the front-facing camera that Samsung loves to do on their more inexpensive phones. I think they do it on purpose, right? So that front-facing camera is more obvious and more visually distracting in their less expensive phones, but I don't care enough at this price point. Now, the display is supposedly 120 hertz that is dynamically refreshed. So instead of just maintaining a high refresh rate all the time, when it's capable of it and it's able to lower the clock speed, it'll downclock it to preserve battery life. It's not mentioned though in the software. And stuff looks good on the screen. If you're playing games, watching movies, or just browsing the web, it's bright, colorful, can't complain with this screen. Now there are stereo speakers, but the left one, or like the top one, left one if you're holding it in landscape orientation, it's noticeably less quiet than the bottom firing speaker. There's also a SIM card tray at the top with a micro SD, which is a huge win, but the biggest win of all, headphone jack. That's the good stuff, right? And because it's a Samsung phone, you get one UI and you have a bunch of Samsung apps pre-installed. Some of those are useful. Most of it I find superfluous and I just remove as much as I can. The face unlock is fast. The fingerprint sensor isn't as fast, but it is available for the people that prefer it. But the overall performance on the device is really good. It's running a Snapdragon 750G, and you would expect it to be quick, and it is, but the thing that surprised me was gaming performance. Even stuff like Genshin Impact is very playable on this device. I will say though that there are some slowdowns, not just in games, but occasionally you'll see some stuttering in the UI, and I don't know if it's because I'm looking for it and I'm trying to compare it to like a Snapdragon 888 and I'm trying to see the differences. I think though that most people that are purchasing this and spending real money on it and using it as a regular phone, not only will you not be bothered by the occasional stutter, but I don't think you'll even notice it. Now in terms of battery life, this has a 4500 milliamp hour battery. It's not particularly big or small. It's kind of to be expected for a Samsung phone of this size, and I'm getting a screen on time of 7.5 hours, and this is at 120 hertz, dynamically refreshed, but this is with the smooth screen option. There is also a 15 watt charger in the box, but there is no support for wireless charging, unfortunately. Okay, let's talk about the camera system, because it's an important part of this device. So this camera system has a main camera with optical image stabilization, and there's also an ultra wide, but there is no optical zoom. It's a purely digital zoom if you want to do it, but we'll get into that in a second. It's actually better than you'd expect. And there's also a 5 megapixel macro. Now, the presence of this OIS on the main camera is awesome. It helps a ton, especially for tough shots like low light photos and shots where your hands weren't perfectly steady. Look at the dark area inside the HUD. The A52 5G is doing some pretty aggressive processing. It's a tough shot though, right? It's bright outside and quite dark inside the HUD, but the camera's still able to do a good job. The ultra wide isn't as good at it though. It still tries, but the details tend to get super grainy in the process. And I'd say in general, the ultra wide lens struggles with the tougher shots. Now, in good lighting, the images look clean, proper coloring, nothing too saturated. If anything, I feel like some of the warmer tones could be a little more amped up, which is kind of surprising coming from a Samsung phone. But overall, I think the camera system is really good. But the zoom is what surprised me the most, I'd say. So this does not have any kind of optical zoom capabilities, right? It's all digital, but even at 10x, the images look reasonably clean. So I think they did a great job on the camera system. And I think for people that are concerned that at this price point, Samsung skimped on the camera, because that's a very reasonable suspicion, I don't think they did. I think that this year they have packed a very well-rounded camera system on the A52 5G. Now, my favorite thing about this phone has nothing to do with any of the hardware. It really is that 4-year security update guarantee from the company. And that's not common. Like if you look at Chinese branded phones that can deliver hardware like this for even less money, they don't give you 3 years of feature support and 4 years of security support. This is special and I appreciate it, but it's right. Obviously not everyone cares about it, but I think for a phone that you're trying to hold on to for 4 or 5 years sometimes, that software support is very valuable over time, right? Okay, great phone. The one biggest weakness I would say it has, and this is, I would say, a minor thing, but in case you care, the haptics on it are very weak. The motor feels insignificant and it seems to stem from like the top or middle of the phone. It's not a great haptic feedback, but otherwise, fantastic phone if you ask me. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. See you guys next time.